What's going on, everybody? This is your host, Sean Johnson, creator of Benchminer Hockey, and welcome to episode number 19 of the Benchminer Hockey Podcast. This is the hockey podcast that covers single A hockey news and stories from players and staff, and now owners, because I have Mr. Barry Soskin as my guest. Thank you so much for coming on, Barry.
Certainly. Thanks for having me.
Of course. First off, I want to thank you for inviting me out to Winston-Salem last week. The wife and I and the daughter had a great time. Not sure if you saw the pictures or not, but my daughter fell in love with Salem, the mascot. So that was worth it. Just seeing her face, that was so worth it.
Cool. Not Dash? Not the little Dash?
I mean, he walked by her a couple times, but she was just fascinated with Salem. I think it's because Salem held her, so she was comfortable with her. But
Cool.
yeah, that was a great time. We
It's all about
Watertown
the fan
showed up.
experience.
Absolutely, yeah. Watertown showed up on Friday night, and it was a great game, shootout. Saturday night was pretty ugly. I think Carolina walked away with an 8-0 win, so that was ugly. But overall, it was a great weekend. We had a great time. Thank you so much for inviting us out there.
Well, you're very welcome. Thank you for the help you did for me in Baton Rouge a little bit before John hopped on board.
Absolutely. So, first off, thank you for speaking with us. You are the very first owner we have on here, so that's awesome. What made you want to come on the Benchminer podcast?
Because of you, Sean. It's all about you.
Well, you got to ask these things sometimes.
Now, listen, whenever I can talk hockey, I'm up for it. You certainly have done a lot, and the podcast has shown me that, there's interest. So if you want to pick the feeble brain that I have, start picking away.
Right on. Have you been keeping up with like our posts and reports and articles and things like that?
Trying to, as you can imagine, with all that's on my plate, um, if I didn't think I was crazy with three, how do people look at this when there's, a couple more in the mix, and then Danville? I've had more people talk to me about Danville in the past 2 weeks than I had for the 10 years that I was there. So there's a lot on my plate. I try to keep up on everything, but a lot of stuff does slip through.
Absolutely. Well, that's why we're here to catch up a little bit. We will talk some Danville hockey here shortly, but for the fans that may not know you yet, we'll say like Motor City Rocker fans and some of these newer teams coming into the league that may not know you. Why don't you talk about yourself a little bit?
I usually don't like to talk about myself. Married forever, 3 kids, all grown. Just one of them just made me a grandpa last couple of days ago. So I've got all that stuff added onto my plate. I started, I play hockey terribly. Big hockey fan. I've had season tickets, love those season ticket holders, but I've had season tickets to my favorite team, the Chicago Blackhawks, for about 40 years. Nope, I lied. About 45 years. So I've moved a couple of times. I've moved buildings, but, I think it's still the greatest sport to watch live. And I thoroughly enjoy it. It's one of the only sports that that my wife likes. So, not only did we get a chance to watch our son growing up and playing hockey, but it was a sport that was something that we could do together because she got into watching it as well. I was playing hockey very poorly as an adult. I think I was about 30 years old, and the adults are playing pretty late at night, and we get done. We all dash to the bar to take a couple of shots to kind of unwind real quick because it's now probably about midnight or later, and we all got to get home to, turn off our alarms at 6 a.m. So while we were trying to solve the world's problems at the bar, we came up with an idea. Most of us were executives. We came up with an idea to get into hockey ownership and management. Actually, we didn't. It was sports management. And then, again, we're playing 3 times every 2 weeks. So next time we get together, the this was 1989. The Class A um, Midwest League. Uh, what were they? The Fort Wayne baseball team with that was affiliated with the Chicago White Sox. Sold for $4.5 million. So the next time we're at the bar, we go, okay, baseball's out. We didn't realize that there were other levels underneath A ball. Again, coming from Chicago, if you don't play for the Cubs or the Sox, you fall off the map. We're not even into the AAA or AA stuff. So, the next time we got together after that, I was reading the hockey news and they advertised where get involved in a team, there's a salary cap. And I was all over it. I felt that I could compete with the Rockefellers, even though I wasn't the Rockefellers. And I got involved with through a couple of turns and events. I wound up in Toledo, and the people that I hired knocked it out of the park, on the ice, off the ice. Did a great job. Won back-to-back championships. I think the first 5 years I only spent 1 month out of first place. I set attendance records for playing in front of percentage of capacity. There were plenty of buildings that were larger than mine, and a few of them that had more attendance, but I was first or second every single year before playing in front of a packed house. And to me, that creates the atmosphere that you saw over the weekend in Winston. I mean, that
Mm.
when the fans are going and getting involved in it, that I love that, and so do the fans. So I got
Yeah.
involved with that, and one thing led to another, and one, two, three, four, five, 10 teams later, here I am.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've seen a bunch of single A teams, over the years, and let me tell you, Winston Salem, that's wild. I love how energetic they are. They love their team. Obviously, packed house, couple sellouts. They're killing it there.
I believe that every market likes their team. Watertown fans. I'm not going to say Columbus fans. I don't want to put any of the fans in the league down. I think not only are the teams that I'm associated with, but all the teams in this league have excellent fans. Some rowdy, some not. Some that I could leave behind. Some that are,
Mhm.
are great and good for what we're trying to do. But that's what this is all about. It is the entertainment factor. Get your chance to get away from your grind, your daily grind.
Absolutely. I know you told us a story about Toledo, and that's great. How you got into hockey ownership. How did you get involved with the Fed originally?
Oof, more good questions. I'm from Chicago, and at the time, that didn't make sense. Doesn't make sense now because I'm so far away. But at the time, I said, I had a team. I had a team in Alabama. I had a team in Iowa. I had a team in Ohio. I don't remember where else I was at the time, or had been, but I said, I want something closer to home. And Danville was an opportunity. And it took me a little bit. I actually went in there with a junior team that didn't work out and never played, but paid my whole year's lease, even though I never played. Wasn't there a single time, gave the ice back to the building to sell it, but I paid for a year's lease without ever being there. And that led me into whether I wanted to be in the AAHA or the Fed. And I compared both leagues. The AHA, if you will, the AHA was more Midwest, but they were in buildings that they really shouldn't have been in. And
Mhm.
and in my opinion, they were further behind than the Fed. So I decided to go into Danville in the Federal Hockey League, and I wound up the first year I had to provide for travel for both teams. So the visiting team that came to me, I had to pay for their travel. So my travel bill that first year was atrocious. But that brought me into the Fed. I was, even though that cost me more than I wanted it to, I still was happier in the Fed than the AHA. And it turned out that that league, I don't think it made it another year. It might have, but I don't think it did.
Mm.
And it folded before Danville got into the Fed.
Oh wow, that is one story I never knew, and I'm glad I know that now. And I was also going to ask you, what goes into market research when you're looking at the next possible location?
Um, the I call it due diligence. My due diligence starts after I find a venue. Um, it's easy to say, well, I want to be in Chicago, or I want to be in New York, or I want to be here or there. If there's no buildings available, am I going to take, my group and build a building and put in ice? You know, that's probably not going to happen. Although one of the buildings that I'm in with now, we are putting in ice, but we did not build the building. The building was built and opened it opened in 2019, so that wasn't the greatest time to open up a building. That's right when COVID was hitting and
Right.
probably in its infancy stage, but still was certainly affecting venues from being able to put people in them. So the opportunity in Virginia arose recently, but most of the times there I find a building and I start to do some research. A lot of the buildings that I've been in had hockey at one point before, and I look to see kind of why it might have failed, or see what some of the other reasons are that I could do differently to to make a better product. I've said this in the past. I don't know if it's a market that has failed a team. You see what we're doing in Winston-Salem. I know the people that have had Winston-Salem in the past. Two of the ownership groups I feel I know pretty well. I think I'm doing a better job than them, yes, but I don't think that they did a terrible job. I believe that they were in leagues that cost too much to operate.
Hmm.
I don't. We're kicking butt in Winston Salem. We are. It's phenomenal. But don't put us in the East Coast Hockey League, and it has nothing to do with the market. It has nothing to do with the people. It has to do with our ability to generate enough income to be able to support a budget that literally is more than three times what I'm spending in Winston-Salem. And in Winston, I also have the concessions. I'm telling you, as an entity, that to just put my team in that league, forget about the concession side, from the hockey team side, at least four times the cost. You were in Winston. Would they pay if their prices were four times? No, they're not paying NHL prices in Winston. So I need to keep doing what we're doing. I need
Hmm.
to, we continue to kick butt and put them 3,200 in. I think it should be just a matter of time before there's talk about expansion or to help us in some way to, continue to make Winston Salem proud, basically.
Absolutely. I know when we were there, my wife was like, "Oh my goodness, like this crowd is crazy. They really love hockey here." And I was like, "This is just like any other team in this league. Alexis, like
Try it. Try it.
everyone loves their team. Some are
Try
a
it.
little more rowdy, a little more loud. And you can hold more people. You're gonna obviously it's gonna be louder in Winston Salem than it is in Delaware, but Delaware still packs the house."
I'm getting older, so I have quite a few senior moments. And I don't remember the 9,000 people in Biloxi last December, but I remember January 2nd, a month ago, a little over a month ago, when we had like 7,800 in Baton Rouge for a game that there was no Baton Rouge team. The
Hmm.
closest team that these guys were rooting for was Biloxi, which was 2 hours, 2 hours and 15 minutes away. And these guys, the fans went absolutely berserk. It was great. The atmosphere was something that put a chill down my spine. I loved it.
Right. No, I'm going to make the trip soon. I don't know when, but I'm going to make my way to Biloxi. Speaking of Biloxi, let's talk about Wytheville and Baton Rouge real quick, since you just brought up Baton Rouge. What is it about those two areas that kind of piqued your interest? I know you said you started with the building, so I'm assuming it started with the building.
Well, in Wytheville,
Is that how you pronounce it? Wytheville? I wasn't sure how to say it.
um,
Wytheville.
okay, I pronounce it Wytheville. I'm hoping that's how you pronounce it.
I don't know. There's
Um,
a Y in it, so I threw a
yeah,
Y.
right.
I have no idea. I gotta look it up, I guess.
Right. When I first heard it, I looked it up and came up with another Wytheville by Danville, by Virginia,
Oh.
and I go, if it's by Danville, I'm feeling a bad vibe here, because this was right after I got, kind of poo pooed on,
Hmm.
um, and so I go, oh, let me check a little bit more out, and then when I talked to him, I learned out how to spell it, and I go, oh, okay, that's not even close to where I was. Um, but in Virginia, they contacted me, and it was one of those where um, I wouldn't have looked there, smaller market, but when you start adding the building and some of the other stuff that goes on there, or the lack of stuff going on there, I think it allows us to look very, very closely at what we're trying to do. And I know that there's a market for certain concerts, and I know that there's that market also for the hockey team. And I know what I need to do to keep my budgets in order, and feel very confident that going in we'll know what to do. It's going to be work. Sean, if you think that, I don't think for one second that anything is given to me here. It's going to take a lot of work, not only by me but the staff that I hire. I'm usually a long distance, or an absentee owner. Um, I talk to every market every day, but still, there's a lot of stuff that you rely on your people there for. So
Hmm.
I'm starting to assemble, and we'll go from there. As far as Biloxi and then Baton Rouge, um, I was sitting there almost kind of like with a guy looking at a map with a dartboard. I'm geographically challenged, so I need the map. But I was looking around, and I go, I remember going to Biloxi in some of the earlier days in the coast, because not only did we play there and I went on a road trip, I had a guy in Toledo that allowed me to use his plane, and literally use the plane. And he'd say you can bring 10 people, total of 10 people flew on the plane. And for what it cost me, it was like an airfare, literally one airfare.
Hmm.
So I'd get 9 of my best friends, and we went to a few games, where the Storm was playing. So I had been to Biloxi. We had an East Coast Hockey League annual meetings down there once. So I hadn't been there since the hurricane, but I felt that the hurricane was far enough down the road where was able to have a new look, whatever.
Hmm.
The building, when I called the building, now this again, I'm still talking Mississippi. When I called the
Right.
building, he said, a lot of people have called me, but um, nobody's given me a second opportunity, or a second call, or whatever, because it's an expensive building to play in. So I talked with him. First of all, I felt that since nobody gave him a second phone call, I had to show up on his doorstep. So I made an airplane ticket for a couple of days from then and showed up at his doorstep. And he was impressed with that. And we started talking. And I left there with a great plan to have 3 games. And depending on the outcome of those 3 games, we could either write a lease or not write a lease. And I will tell you that I'm glad that happened that way. As expensive as that building is, got a little scared. I talked to building manager's name is Matt McDonald, and he is great to work with. Talk with him, and I go, I don't want to get, here I don't want to get kicked out of Dan like I got kicked out of Danville and got kicked out of other places as well. Um, so I wanted to make sure that this was going to be, you weren't going to anybody else. After the first game, he got a call from the Southern Pro. After the second game, he got another call from a Southern Pro and a call from the East Coast Hockey League. After the third game, he got another call from the Southern Pro, another call from the East Coast Hockey League, and a call from the AHL. Every
Oh my.
minor league branch of hockey wanted to go into Biloxi. And this honorable guy, without a contract from me, said Barry was the only one that gave this a shot. Barry's the one that's going in. And
Hmm.
he wrote me a lease. And the lease is good for both of us. If it makes money, he'll make a bunch of it. If it doesn't make money, I won't be there too long, so he won't recognize too much of a loss because
Hmm.
I won't be there. And I want to be there. We're doing everything we can, like we're doing in Winston. Um, Team isn't as good as Winston yet. I know that Joe's doing a hell of a job turning that around. Literally from where we were when we made the coaching change to having Joe pick it up, and
Hmm.
then having a bunch of changes and a little bit of people not understanding that Joe is the boss. They've won 3 of the last 4 series, and the series that they didn't win was against Winston-Salem, which is a real strong team this year. So
Hmm.
Joe winning those, not just Joe, the whole team winning, and getting back in a groove is great. Is there enough time? I don't know, but I like to see progress no matter when it is or what it is.
Right. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Um, I just also want to ask, the Fed has come a long way since its inception. What do you think the league looks like down the road? Let's say 3 to 5 years from now.
Probably a little bit more of the same. I mean, we have to do a better job at taking care of the smaller markets. I don't want to get into the have and have nots. It's a discussion that we have every year. I know it because I'm on both sides of those conversations. Uh, I I feel that if we're going to be, I hate to put a number on it, but I just know from talking with the people that I'm talking with in the league and outside of it, I think that 14, 16 is probably where it's going to wind up leveling off.
Mhm.
Um, I would like to continuing seeing progress within our growth and our movement of players to the next level. Uh, I would I would like to see maybe a better a better relationship with the coast. But honestly, I think that that's going to come with coaches and players. If you're a coach that's gearing towards a, a certain player, I don't know if that's in the East Coast Hockey League coaches or ECHL, I think they're called now, in their mindset. So,
Mhm.
you know, um, I spent a lot of time in the coast as an owner and manager at Toledo, so I'm still very familiar with how things run there, and
Right.
I like to see that relationship getting a little stronger. It helps, but it hurts. They don't take your worst player; they take your best player, and they're not bashful about when they're taking them. I want to give them to them when we're on the road, and they want to take them when they need them.
Hmm.
So that'll go
Yep,
through too.
absolutely. I also wanted to ask you about now I didn't do my homework on this. I really didn't. But I did see an article with Don saying that, the Fed is looking at adding a team in South Jersey. Are you part of that or no?
I am not part of that, but I
Okay.
do. I have talked to Don about that as well. Um, yeah, that's actually another team actually helped facilitate that. That's how these things work. I know this guy, you know this guy, and when I mentioned some of this stuff 10 years ago, I was like, no way, I don't want to get involved in that. And now those same people that didn't want to get involved when it was free,
Hmm.
now they'll get involved, even though it's going to cost them quite a bit of money to do that. Where they're check the history of the league. We've done things in this league where we've allowed a team in, and they didn't even have to pay dues just to help us out and be a sixth team and get in the league.
Hmm.
Now, now you're going to pay your dues in advance, and franchise fee is well into six digits. So if you can't make it, there's the issue, which goes back to the smaller markets, because I like the water towns of the world, and I'm not saying that
Hmm.
because they're your team. I'm
I,
I'm saying it
I'm
because
unbiased. I'm unbiased.
yeah,
I try to
talk
be.
about my
Yes, I
I
love
get
Watertown, but
it. I get it. But that's what we need to do. We need to just be able to make sure that those smaller markets can make it, so that it keeps all these teams like I'm talking about around, and that keeps players playing. I love being able to let a player live out his dream. Before he's got to face reality and get a real job.
yeah, it ain't about the
Yeah,
money at this
I
level. It's
saw
about the
that
love of the game.
sign.
That's what I'm told.
That's why you're doing what you're doing now.
That's right. I'm not making any money doing this, but I enjoy it, so it's fine. Now, you currently own a few teams in the league, and there are more to come. We know that now. I know a lot of people kind of joke around and call it the SHL or the Soskin Hockey League. But all jokes aside, have you ever considered starting your own league?
Every time I get pissed at the refs.
Every weekend, then. Okay,
You
got
know
it.
what? There's yeah, I believe opinionated as ever. I would really like for people to learn from my experiences, because those experiences either made me money or cost me money.
Mhm.
And I don't want to have to go through the costing me money again. So I would like the new people to say, yeah, Barry, I don't have to do that crap again. You lived it in this league, not in another league, not in another lifetime. This league recently, we don't have to do the same thing again. We trust you, Barry. And you know what? We're not sure if we trust Barry, but Don and Sarge, you guys were here. You're backing up exactly what Barry's saying. So I don't want to always rule. I just think that, I lost money doing it that way. Why do it again that way? And if we're going to do it that way, could you please pay the money that I'm going to lose because this decision is wrong again?
Mhm.
Um, so there's been many a times where my friends, I even say it to Don and Sarge, the All Berry League or the Berry Hockey League. I think my buddy Jeff out in Columbus was going the BHL for the Berry Hockey League. But no, I don't have any desire. I like what Don and Sarge are trying to do. You know, in business, it doesn't ever seem to be a straight road. There's always different bumps, different turns, and I always feel we'll get there. Uh, I joked and said, every time I'm fighting with the refs or don't like the refs, I want to make it clear. I think the refs this year are better than they ever have been. Uh, do I like them? No, I still think they all need better prescription glasses and they all need better judgment. But now that I've said that, I think that they are doing a really good job. Um, I think our league is the hardest to ref. And again, I'm saying that because of all the stuff that us fans want, and us fans happen to be owners. And so we want to bring a certain element of that to the game, but yet not total chaos. So that's the things that we're trying to go through, and I think that our refs, with our 4-man system and the job that we've done, uh, have have really stepped it up this year. I
Mhm.
do believe that.
Absolutely, I agree.
I
One
had to
thing I
clear
forgot to
that in
mention.
case they hear that, in case they hear this podcast. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they hear it. They hear it. We love the refs. I don't care. I know fans give them a hard time, but I think you guys do an awesome job. It like you said, it's not easy to do at all. But I think they're doing phenomenal this year. I think they could chill out a little bit with the abusive officials call. I don't really know what's being said on the ice. I don't hear it, but I feel like I see that every game numerous times.
As a league, we're trying to do something about that. The abuse of the officials, I think, might also be an official that's just sick of hearing it. But what I don't like, and what I will put an end to with my teams starting next year, and maybe even this year if it continues as bad as it's been, I don't like the gestures. Okay,
Hmm.
um, you know, I, when I was younger, I gave somebody a finger. I gave my friends the finger every time I saw some of them. But there's a time and a place, and this isn't 1980 or 70. This is 2013, and you just shouldn't say certain words, and you shouldn't do certain things. And I do not like, when somebody's getting a little too touchy feely with his stick and showing a little motion that I don't like to see. I don't mind if he's gotten thrown out of the game. And if that's going to continue happening with my teams, that guy's going to be thrown out of more than one game. And my coach will wind up being in trouble for it. So it won't be long before the coach does not want to be reprimanded, and we will get rid of those type of players. And I'll
All right.
make it so
Well,
they can't play in the league anymore. Not just don't play. For me, we will make sure that stuff like that doesn't allow to get played or doesn't allow to happen in this league. Because that's what I'm about. I'm not only about my individual team, I'm about this league. And if some team on my team or on your Watertown team, if they're doing something derogatory that's hurting my asset, I'm not going to stay quiet about it.
mhm. Well, absolutely agree with you there. Um, Players, behave yourselves. Be good out there. Like obviously you want to see your players have fun, but like you said, there's time and a place. You guys are still professionals, got to act like it. Moving on from that,
Is there a place ever to be jerking off the stick?
no, no, not
You got a
not like
daughter.
that,
You want to
not
bring
that.
your daughter to the game for that? I don't want that. I'm not publicizing that. I don't want anybody to do that. And that's the stuff when it's done, it ain't going to be done long on my team. Period.
Well, absolutely. This is actually going to be a two-part series, so we are going to cap it here, and we are going to bring Barry back to talk Danville hockey. Is there anything you would like to say for a closing remark here, Barry?
No, thank you very much. Take care, guys.